representatives from other cities, and we've reached out to them to be able to meet with them and talk about exactly how that forum would work.
And when you were talking with Colin, was it his suggestion that we work on this after we get through the legislative
We talked about working on it after the legislative session because we spent a lot of time in Topeka at this time. But we talked with the major engineering firms also who have the national utility expertise who are also willing to come here and assist us.
But the assumption was that those discussions, that meeting would not take place until after the legislative session.
I think that's what you said, yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm one of the three that obviously have supported a Board of Public Utilities. I too thought, oh, we can fast track this. Obviously, that doesn't sound like that's the case. I feel that in light of the recent information we've got the past few weeks, that if we can't fast track it, if it is going to be after the legislative session, we may need to look at the, we do need to look at making it an advisory board. We've already ratified the rates. We've already made the electric board follow the purchasing policy. There's only a couple other aspects that I think maybe we're in violation of or not following the statute. So you haven't asked us, but I'm going to just tell you, I am in favor of continue the EUB with changed ordinance and make it be an advisory board until we can have discussions, have open forums, and hopefully get on track for a BPU. But I feel like we're opening ourselves up to too much
risk
until we get to that. And I mean, maybe I was a little Pollyanna. I thought that we'd maybe be there by now, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be in the cards. So I don't want to open us up even one more day with the risk.
Honestly, I thought that in 2012 we would have had a BPU, but it hasn't happened yet, but that doesn't mean it's not going to necessarily happen in the future.
I'm still in favor of it, but I just feel like maybe we need to fix some of the issues. Since we've already started, let's fix it so we're not open to risk and move forward.
Okay. Anybody else feel the way that Councilmember Roberts does?
I guess from my perspective, as Forrest said, we've already made the changes that I think were the largest concerns of not allowing the electric utility board to operate independently. So in essence, they are an advisor. I mean, they're adhering to the citywide purchasing policy. They don't have charter and budget and rate authority. So in essence, they're operating that way without the ordinance.
You know, for me, it continues to come back to the thing I've asked for since the time we talked about it. Is sitting down with Ryan, with staff, with EUB, line item by line item, with each one of these statutory issues that Ryan's brought forth, and how do we quickly resolve those. We've done a couple of those, and I don't know that we have to break it all the way down to the advice board. I've always felt that there was the option D. Chris talked about 3 things today. Again, he didn't bring up option D, which he and I have talked about, Shell and I have talked about. I've talked about it in council forum of actually addressing issue by issue. I think if we spent some time in one work session, we'd have been able to accomplish this with that sort of directed manner. Many of these, as I looked at today, we've actually already addressed. That door's already been closed. So when we talk about disclosures and other things, we've already taken care of some, and these others are still open to interpretation and even aren't as cut and dry as some would lead us to believe, and we could close that door even more simple than we have in the past. And that's still the approach I wish that we would have taken. We could have had this behind us already with all of our focus on the whether it be a BPU, whether it be actually selling the utility, whatever that might be, this part wouldn't have had to have drawn any more time than it already has, and resources, money that we spent, researching the issue, because that's not come at no cost as well. But I think we could close those doors. Now, it's important to me, if someone actually does move to consider the proposed ordinance, we want to talk about some suggestions of the changes that we'd already talked about in previous meetings that others had talked to. But I don't know if Terry's had a chance to look at that. Is that going to actually meet the criteria of Terry from a coverage standpoint of NPR? Will that, at that point, satisfy their needs? Because he talked about sitting in the room with us as we're working on that resolution to make sure it actually meets the demands of our insurance coverage, our legal advisor, the council as a whole. So all three of those criteria are in place. I don't know if that's taken, if Terry's reviewed actually the proposed ordinance, but I would think that'd be a pretty key step to the process. But again, it's not gone the way I'd hoped for. I've told that time and time again, so I don't need to beat that up. We could have already been done, in my opinion, if we'd have done it a different way.
And honestly, Heath, it could have been done if we'd all gotten on board and done it your way, and we could have all gotten, if we'd all done it the way Steve wanted to, we could have all gotten it done that way. And honestly, at the December 16th meeting, where we spent, 120-plus excruciating minutes discussing this, if we would have actually worked towards a common goal there, maybe we could have been most of the way there already, too. But we didn't, and this is the situation we find ourselves in. Ryan?
Yes.
I mean, this is, what Councilmember Roberts was referencing was your proposed ordinance for, making the Electric Utility Board an advisory board. I mean, is there anything in this document that would keep us from being covered by our insurance carrier?
I don't think so. I mean, it brings us into compliance with Kansas law. I think the analogous situation of the Planning Commission, which is, ultimately just renders recommendations to the governing body. So it's really hard for me to envision a situation where, the EUB or the individual members of the EUB would ever be named individually under this structure, because they're not ultimately making the final decision on these items. And I don't want to speak for Terry or the coverages under his policy, but those would be my thoughts on it.
But at this point, we would be,
Yes.
Christie, what you were saying, I couldn't quite tell if that was an endorsement of what Tori was
It is.
hoping to do? Okay. Heath, you were saying that there were things in this document that you'd want to see addressed?
Well, the proposal, I'm actually reviewing the notes to go back, because there were some verbiage changes that we had. I don't know that we have a copy of that ever presented for a vote. So I'm actually looking through our printed materials to try to see if I can have those read into the record.
My notes on that.
Read into the record even. Most of them were clerical, but there actually was a consensus to move forward in there.
Yeah, if you look at the meeting, it's shown as page 85 in this packet.
Is it really? Great.
Yeah, go down through there, and, so it says, like, one of the, Mr. Friedman referred to section 2B of the
Perfect.
proposed ordinance, requested be amended, so there's that all the way down through here.
Excellent. That's exactly what it was.
If I recall correctly, we didn't have any disagreement with the changes.
No,
that
there was
we wanted.
consensus with all those changes. I just want to make sure that they're part of what whatever actions are taken next, I want to make sure that's a part of it at the same time. The one question I guess we should probably wait. I don't know what the next steps are right now. We're only talking about, there is no action, so I suppose we might need to limit conversation on what the next steps are going to be, because there isn't nothing brought forth tonight. We'll probably have some further questions in that regard.
We can certainly make a motion to adopt the ordinances.
Repeal and adopt?
Probably read the verbiage from just that action form that was probably on that same meeting.
Yeah, the ordinance, you don't have to make a separate motion to repeal. That's incorporated as part of.
It's part
If
of
you look at
part of
page
the proposed ordinance.
79, it will have the action item on it, on page 79.
Before we go to a motion, I just need to know, I want to get some assurances that we will continue to pursue a BPU. I don't think that anybody on this council, I don't feel comfortable voting for this unless we are going to be pursuing a BPU and continuing that road.
Well, I think from my perspective, I've always been supportive of pursuing and when we say pursue, I want us to be careful, because if we have these meetings and all of a sudden that determines there's something that says, you know what, that's not the best thing to do,